What scientific fact scares the absolute crap out of you? Story 1. Healthy student. I've had to drop out of university due to getting the flu and then developing chronic fatigue syndrome. I have blurred vision, constant dizziness, extreme fatigue, and a whole manner of 24/7 flu-like symptoms that never go away. I can't physically go anywhere most days, but on all days I can walk outside for about 3 miles max before my vision degrades to grains, almost black and white, and I physically can't continue. I struggle to sleep sometimes, I struggle to eat other times. When I get a bug, I get it 5 times worse than normal, all part of the condition. There is no medical cure. It has to go away on its own, and that could be a matter of months, years, or never. It is totally random and differs from person to person. I am a year into it. It gradually got better for me with gradual pacing and exercise until December, when I randomly relapsed back to square one. My life possibly ruined from one harmless bug I caught just happening to mess up my body's functions. I wouldn't say I'm severely disabled, but I'm not going to be able to live my life in the foreseeable future. It's just going to be constant low-level suffering and not being able to do anything that doesn't involve a computer. I read a story about a guy who used to travel the world and eventually caught a bug, developed CFS, stopped talking, and now has to lay in a dark, quiet room all day because any kind of sense stimulation causes his body/mind to overexert itself and bring about horrible symptoms. It can certainly get worse than what I experience. I very much understand that. It's hard to really take stories like this too seriously when you've never experienced it, but I strongly recommend to everyone, no matter how bleak things might get, please take a minute to appreciate being able to go out and do things, or even being able to get out of bed if you're able to. No one really knows what they have until it is gone, and there's no clear way of getting it back. I appreciate all the kind comments. It is an awkward blend of nice and awful to know I'm not alone in this kind of thing. I'm just trying to spread some kind of awareness about CFS and other related weird dysfunctions. I hope for an eventual recovery for everyone, no matter how scary it gets. Do not give up. It doesn't deserve to win. Story 2. The fact that we can just get a blood clot and die and not realize anything was up. The human body has so many ways of just suddenly dying, and it's terrifying. When my friend started studying medicine, she said she's surprised we're not dead yet because she's constantly learning about so many ways and things that can kill people so easily. I've backed out of a lot of fist fights as I've gotten older. I've also stopped going out to bars and getting blacked out. My reasons are that I've got a good job, and if I get arrested, I'll lose that and be unhireable in my field. And my family had a friend of a family friend who punched a guy outside of a bar in our city and knocked him backwards, hit his head on the ground, and died on the spot. The guy he punched had wealthy parents, and he got sued into oblivion on top of a 15-year sentence. His life is effectively over. My point is, a mild bonk on the head can kill you instantly. Be the bigger man. Unless it's self-defense, walk away. Don't risk your life or your career over words, because while the body can recover from some remarkable injuries, the littlest things can kill you like that. Story 3. It's both amazing how little it takes to kill someone and how much it can take. One person survives falling out of an airplane and another dies jumping into a lake. A friend of mine is a firefighter. He told me pretty crazy stories about dumb luck, or lack thereof, like seeing a healthy young woman dead from falling down one stair and hitting her head at just the wrong angle. Story 4. Cockroaches can live for up to a week without their head. Cockroaches can live for 5 months on wallpaper glue. Cockroaches can hold their breath for up to 40 minutes. Yes, I have catsaritophobia. Story 5. My baby was born with tons of blood clots. The doctors were sort of confused on what to do because he really was an anomaly. In the end, we just did blood thinner shots for 6 months, 2 as X a day on a baby, with ultrasounds every month to check the status of the clots. Luckily, none of them moved, and they all resolved or calcified. He tested negative for all blood clotting disorders. Perfectly healthy now. It took me almost a year before I finally stopped worrying if he was going to drop dead at any second. Yeah, my mental health is not the best. Story 6. I came very, very close to this happening to me. A week after surgery for a broken ankle, I was feeling short of breath and kind of clammy. I almost wrote it off as I just overdid it a bit that day, but my sister suggested I go to the ER, just in case. Turns out I had a massive saddle PE and had an emergency procedure to remove it and spent 3 days in ICU. If I hadn't gone in, I'd absolutely be dead. Story 7. Oh man, I relate to this on such a personal level. My very healthy cousin died at 26 years old because one night, he just got sick and died in his sleep. Autopsy came back with a brain tumor. I don't know all the details, like if it was a long-developing tumor or just suddenly happened that night, if that's possible. Just shows the fragility of life. I've surpassed his age, and I remember turning 26 and thinking, man, this just isn't fair. It really was a wake-up call to appreciate every fleeting moment. Story 8. The fact that your body can have advancing cancer and you wouldn't know it sometimes. Father-in-law's brother was walking through his kitchen and he fainted and hit his head on the counter. He was rushed to the hospital and they ran tests, and he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and his body was already in the endgame. He was dead within 2 months of diagnosis. That stuff terrifies me, and it can happen to anyone. Story 9. My dad had pancreatic cancer. He lost a ton of weight last year between Christmas and Easter. He kept being stubborn and going to the hospital saying something wasn't right, but they couldn't find anything after testing. Thought it was a digestive issue or a million other things. Cancer scan showed nothing at the big NYC hospital. A week later, he was fed up again, went to our smaller local hospital, and they did a biopsy. The cancer mass was just starting to grow at the biopsy site. Did the Whipple procedure, chemo every other week from July to January. Things are looking better. As of now, it's gone, but they're going to be doing scans every 6 months. It's scary to think if he wasn't so insistent on what would have happened, even if it was a few weeks. My mom complained because of his insistence of getting checked out for months and the tests, and then chemo was starting right during summer and vacations. She wasn't supportive at all and wanted to move things around to better fit her schedule. Anyway, we're lucky, so we're very aware we're lucky. Even if you know something's not right, it's crazy how long it took him to get a diagnosis, even knowing something wasn't right. Story 10 happened to my 5-year-old daughter. For a week, she had a nosebleed on and off that the doctors weren't concerned about since kids get nosebleeds for various reasons. Then she collapsed a week later and was gone 3 hours after getting to the hospital. She had leukemia. I have 2 other children and I'm terrified something could happen to them too. Story 11. My dad was feeling a little sick, so he went to the doctor. His main symptoms was that suddenly certain foods didn't really sit right and he would get diarrhea a few hours later. Turned out he had colon cancer, stage 4. No symptoms until that point. He lasted 7 months, but they definitely weren't a fun 7 months. Cancer is no joke. Story 12. Scientific literature's conclusion on Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases in general is that the diseases start decades before the first obvious symptoms and that we need to treat them at this stage. When you exhibit obvious symptoms, it's too late. Your brain is already mush. If you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 65, you've had the disease since your early 40s at least, and you experience very mild symptoms but didn't notice them, and your brain fought like hell to compensate for the deficit. When you get diagnosed, your brain is already very severely damaged and will never recover from the deficit. Looking back at my dad's symptoms, some examples in his case was forgetting our address and having to ask me what it was while he was on the phone with someone, getting irrationally angry over little things. One time he got very angry with me that I was playing with a laser with the family cat. He was convinced I was going to blind the cat. And just generally very angry, short fuse, whereas before he was overall a very even-keeled person. I read somewhere that extreme irritability that seems to come from nowhere can be one of the earliest symptoms. Story 13. Rabies. You can have it and never know until it decides it's time, and then you'll die terribly. I used to get a bat in my old house that would weasel his way in through an old crawl space. Woke up to him flying in my room once. That was 15 years ago, but part of me still thinks I should get a rabies test done. If it was 15 years ago, then you should be fine. The World Health Organization says the incubation period for rabies is typically up to a year, so if you did have it, you'd be long dead by now. Story 14. Space just in general. Or that bit about the Higgs field not being in true equilibrium and that returning to it would break everything as we know it. Quantum physicist here, thanks for bringing up the Higgs field. It isn't something we know too much about, the Higgs mechanism in general. And though vacuum decay is extremely unlikely, if possible in the first place, it is still really awesome to learn how the universe works. I actually helped discover the Higgs boson in 2012 when I worked at the LHC during its second run. Story 15. I don't know if it's any comfort, but that existential terror feeling is just your brain returning an error message when it comes across something it can't comprehend. It has no way of understanding death or life for that matter, nor even the very nature of consciousness, how it could be created or destroyed. It's literally beyond comprehension. Your brain just doesn't know how to react. Your brain is also pre-programmed to fear death via evolution, which doesn't help. A lot of anxieties are caused by your brain doing things it thinks will help you stay alive that it doesn't understand and reacts irrationally. Just accept that feeling as an evolutionary hang-up that isn't helpful. Thank your brain for the warning, but let it know it isn't needed right now. Story 16. I don't remember what it was called, but there was an event in the 1800s caused by solar activity where telegraphs operated on their own without power, and I think caused minor damage. Should such a solar event happen again, it would destroy all of our internet network capabilities and other electrical gear. Anyone know what I'm referring to? Story 17. Less scary, more mind-numbingly depressing is the dark era of the universe. When all the star fuel is gone, and it will be, and all the white dwarfs have gone cold and dark, and they will, and all the black holes have evaporated away into elementary particles, and they will. The universe will be a cold, dark place forever. Story 18. If you want an ounce of hope, look into Roger Penrose's Conformal Cyclic Cosmology. It posits that if matter decays, there will be no matter left in the universe in the extraordinarily far future. Without mass, there is no distance between things, because time is distance. Time is the difference between distance in space. Space and time will then end because without distance there is no space. Without space there is no time. And all that's left is energy. Without space-time, everything is everywhere, all at once. Similar to the conditions of the Big Bang. A small quantum fluctuation later, and another Big Bang. I chose to believe in CCC because I would hate spending an absolute eternity in oblivion because everything's dead forever. CC also makes a lot of sense to me. There are cycles to everything. Why not a cycle to the universe too?